Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Democratic View. I'm the hostess, and my name is Phyllis Italiano, and I'm here with the boss, Morgan Vaughan, who is the executive director of LTV, which stands for local television, right?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay, so Morgan, we all want to find out about you. First of all, how long have you been doing this?
Let's see, I started as interim executive director in March, and then I became full-time executive director or permanent executive director in August.
So it's almost a year.
It's almost a year, yeah. Maybe March, April-ish.
Yeah.
That I was working alongside with the former executive director, just learning the ropes. And then I decided, the board asked me to stay on, and I applied, and I
So we need to find out about you.
Okay.
So who are you? Where were you born, raised, and all that kind of stuff?
I was born here in East Hampton.
No kidding.
I grew up here.
I hate people like you.
I grew up, and I'm living in the same house that I was brought home to as a baby. When, after being born in Southampton Hospital, brought home to the house that I'm living in, that my husband and I own now. And that's what I did. I went away for a long time, and then my husband and I came back after we lived in LA for a while.
Must have been unbelievable in those days.
It was, this is why one of the reasons we moved back, because I was sure that we were just going to love it so much, because it was such a great place to grow up.
Well, I got news for you. I've never lived anywhere that I love more than East Hampton.
It was, I think, I have these memories of it being a little more rural and more of a community. And
yes.
There was always the split from when I lived here in between the super wealthy and the people who worked for them, which is what I kind of call everybody else besides the super wealthy. But it wasn't like it is now. It wasn't such, I don't think there was the super wealthy. Oh. The beyond comprehension wealthy.
I call them the shishis.
Right, exactly. So it was a little, and it was a lot smaller, obviously, in terms of the population, and it was a beautiful, beautiful place. And of course, when you're a kid, it's heaven, because, I just spent all my summers at the beach all day long, and all of my winters, cozy in the house or going to school, and it was a beautiful place to grow up.
Yes, I can imagine. I don't know if you do know this, but I went to Jamesport as a mere slip of a girl.
Oh, really?
When it was nothing but fields of vegetables. And not just potatoes, squashes and things like that. And I went there for years until I actually graduated college and was working, and then had my children. And then we went to Fire Island for 35 years.
Wow.
Which was heaven on earth.
Yeah.
You really lived,
right.
2 doors from the ocean, which was incredible.
That's a dream.
Yeah, it is a dream.
Yeah.
Long Island is incredible, and we only hope we can keep it this way. So then, where did you go to college?
Well, just backtracking quickly, I want to talk about the potato bugs, the potato fields, because at one point we lived in a house that was right on the potato fields, and that's what I really remember, is these huge, just expanses of potato fields, which now have houses on them.
Of course.
But the potato bugs that would walk, huge swaths of them would walk over and above the house and spraying for potato bugs, and that's what I remember very specifically.
Wow.
And just, now, you drive through Bridgehampton, all those places that were in Sagaponack, and all those places that
You mean all of the big, huge houses that the Queen is going to come and stay in?
Yeah.
That were really are situated on what is called Bridgehampton Loam?
Yeah.
Only the most fertile ground, probably, in the world?
Yeah.
And really
those
amazing.
Places, yeah.
We're going to have to throw them down when we're starving.
Yeah. There are a lot of big houses there that probably aren't very occupied.
It's true.
But
it's true.
So that was very different. So where I went to college, I went to college a little bit to Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts. And then I went also to, I kind of didn't love it there, even though my mother had gone there. And my grandfather had taught there. And then I went to the University of Montana in Missoula, Montana. And I went there.
Montana?
I just sort of wanted
Holy
something
mackerel,
different.
what a change.
It was such a change. It was completely, obviously, opposite from this completely flat land and ocean to mountains. And I lived in a town called Missoula, Montana, which is an amazing, amazing town. But it was strange because I sort of had this feeling the mountains were like my ocean, because I didn't, you really miss the ocean when you grow up near the ocean.
I know.
And so, but it sort of felt the same in a weird way. And I loved Missoula, and I got a bachelor's in women's studies and humanities, and then also French. And then I stayed and I got my master's degree in journalism there. But all the time that I was there, I was acting and singing. And so then I decided to move to Chicago, and I lived there for a while, and I was acting and singing there. And I sort of used my journalism degree, but not so much, mostly freelance editing. And then I lived in a bunch of different places. I've sort of, because I would travel with theater troupes. I played Patsy Cline for years. I can sing like her, and I did always.
That ain't bad.
The show was like always Patsy Cline and A Closer Walk with Patsy Cline, and I would be hired to go and tour the country. So I toured the Southeast, and I did Colorado and all these places. So that is what I did for a long time, and then I decided to go back to school, and I got a Master's of Fine Arts in Classical Acting. So that's
Where did
Shakespeare.
you get that?
George Washington University in D.C.
Oh, that's where I went to college.
Really? At George Washington or D.C.?
No, I went to American University.
I love D.C.
I love D.C. too. I would have stayed there all my life, except it was too far from the water.
Yeah, it is. It is. But it is such an exciting
It's a lovely place. Really lovely.
I really liked it. Me, personally, I liked it better than New York City. I just felt better there.
I agree.
Personally, that's and maybe because I didn't ever live in New York City where I had a lot of money or I was doing something. Yeah. But D.C. was wonderful, and I loved it. So that's what I did, and that's where I met my husband. And we went and moved to L.A. for 2 years, and then my father passed away, and we moved back here because we were supporting this house and the house and living in L.A. So we decided.
And L.A. is not cheap either.
L.A. is not cheap either, and right then was the absolute. It was like 2009, so the housing market had completely crashed. We didn't want to just sell.
Where in L.A. were you living?
At first, we lived in North Hollywood, and then we lived in Encino. So we lived, north of Hollywood. But that was quite an experience.
Yes.
That was really, really fun.
I've lived there, too.
Yeah. Where did you live?
I lived in Santa Monica.
I love Santa Monica. That is a beautiful place.
It's the best place of all at the L.A. area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, and it was.
I was in L.A. when I was 15 years old because my sister went there.
Oh, yeah.
So I was traveling back and forth to L.A. a lot.
So from New York to L.A. or to?
New York to L.A., and then Washington, D.C. to L.A.,
What did you study at American?
I started out with history. Okay. History and politics. I was going to become a lawyer. Oh. But you couldn't be a lawyer in those days if you were a woman.
Really?
Believe it or not. No. You couldn't get into law school. So then I became an elementary ed and went into and taught my first couple of years in Bethesda and Montgomery County, which is adjacent to Washington, D.C. But D.C. is a great place to live, really.
I think you've been a good lawyer. I
would have been a great lawyer. If I was a lawyer now, I'd be in the Senate.
You would be.
So tell us now, here you've been acting and you came back over here, and were you still acting when you got here? How do you earn a living when you come here?
Yeah, when we got here, we started a theater company called Round Table Theater Company, and we were teaching Shakespeare at Guildhall, and we did a couple productions. We did Macbeth here at LTV, and then we did Hamlet last fall at Guildhall, which my husband was Hamlet, I directed, and in Macbeth, and these were both all equity productions. They were I loved Macbeth here, and that's how I got involved with LTV, is that we came in as guest artists at LTV and did Macbeth in the Studio 3 space.
So how did Seth make the connection between an actress and you, Seth Rutledge, who was the former executive director? How did he make the connection of taking you and putting you in charge of this station as he left it?
Well, ultimately, I was acting, but I was also always supporting myself with my journalism degree in terms of in terms of editing. And as a producer, which is what I was doing with Hamlet and Macbeth, that is the same stuff. It's the same payroll. It's the same organizing people. I'm also an equity stage manager, so I worked professionally at Guildhall, stage managing Cripple of Inishmaan, a couple other things.
When you are an organizer, you are an organizer. As an administrator in the Yonkers Public Schools, I know what you're talking about.
It is, and then I also was the Teenie Awards coordinator with East End Arts for a couple of years. So that is a big production at the end of the year that, you do this awards show for the local high schools. So there was a lot of organization in that, and I happened to be pretty good at that. And so I did, when we came here and did Macbeth, Seth and I just were friendly. And I think that Seth and I respected each other as professionals, and I think that's why we got along so well. And so what happened was that I had taken a job. This all sounds very complicated, it isn't that much. I worked for about a year and a half at West Hampton Beach Performing Arts Center in their education department. But after a while, after about a year and a half, I just couldn't do that drive anymore.
Yeah,
I don't know
it
how
is a
people
drive.
do it.
It is a
I
drive.
admire people very much who can do that. For me, and I was lucky. I said, let's not do this. And my husband said, okay. And then I was all excited for 2 weeks of I'm going to be doing, nothing. And then I'll start looking for another job. And then Seth called me basically the next day and said,
good luck.
Oh, I heard that you aren't at West Hampton Beach. What would you think about coming and being the interim executive director at LTV? And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to do that. That sounds hard. But he said, you're just going to come in and do payroll and it'll be fine. And then, of course, it ended up being something that is not just that and is actually a place.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah. I mean, it's an intense job. It's a really hands-on, all sorts of duties job. And
well, in case people don't realize, LTV does film all of the official board programs that go on in East Hampton.
It's 193 meetings per year for the town board, and that's only for the board meetings and the village board meetings and the zoning board and the architectural review board and now the trustees and all of this. Plus we have studio shows, plus we have all sorts of events that we film outside of here. That are with the
and we've
Historical
all seen,
Society. And
we've all seen the parades and all that kind of stuff.
The parades, the Historical Society, the library, the spring school, et cetera. So there's all sorts of stuff going on all the time. It takes a lot of organization and a lot of people.
And so is that you who assigns, you do this, you do that?
Well, a lot of it was the way it was when I got here. I mean, for instance, Paul Don Harford he's basically the government person. Although Mike Tremblay does also some of the village meetings, but he is mostly, right now, we're considering him and more structuring him towards being the education manager. And then we have several other people who come in and record various meetings. And then we have Jeannie Henderson, who's our archivist, who's been at LTV for something like 30 years, maybe more. And she coordinates a lot or goes and films a lot of the Historical Society, Springs, the Free Life, and Spring School in Action, and the Spring School Opera, and various events at Guildhall. And so that is there's a lot of things going on here all the time, and we're a very small staff. We have about 7 full-time people and several part-time people, but that's a lot. That's not very many people to do as much as we do. So we all work a little light fixture. Somebody will get to that.
Ho ho.
And so
we call that sound effects.
So that's what we do. It is very complex, and then because we're a not-for-profit, there's all the sorts of things that go along with fundraising and being a business, which is also a whole different part of this job, which is completely different from producing.
Now, what responsibility do you have to the town as far as finance and all that is concerned?
The town, we're very fortunate in that we have a contract with East Hampton Town. A lot of public access stations are either a town department which is completely different. So if we were a town department, the town would take care of the lawyers and the accountants and all this stuff. But we're a not-for-profit, but we do have a contract with the town that is through the Cablevision franchise fee. So the town negotiated a franchise fee so that Cablevision could come in, and we get a portion of that money that Cablevision pays to the town. So in other words, your and my property taxes don't pay for LTV, but the franchise fee, if we, as Cablevision subscribers, we pay, I think it's something like $4 a month. I don't know the exact math, goes towards LTV and all that we do. And
so what does the education, when you talk about the education department, what do you mean in that way?
Well, that is something that I'm really, really working on expanding. And that we are adding more classes in terms of, first of all, I'm going to be adding some acting classes and some acting on camera classes, but also in terms of just training here for use of the cameras and directing and becoming a producer. The producers classes we decided to change the way
format?
That was working. Yeah, because the producers classes were basically held during the day, during the work week for a full 8 hours, and it would do an orientation, camera, and directing.
I know, I've done it.
Right. Right. And so, but what we're doing now is that on certain Mondays, and we're trying probably every other month or so, we have a Monday night, 7 to 9 orientation, and then a week later, a camera, 7 to 9 p.m., and the next week, the directing, 7 to 9 p.m. And you can take those classes. Say if you miss that camera class, you can take it another time. But the point is to get people here when it's not the working day.
Certainly.
Because we wanted people to be able to do this, you know? I mean, I wouldn't be able to take the class because I would have to skip a day of work. Right. So that's what we did. And so that class actually is being offered this coming Monday, which is the 11th. Yes, 11th of January for the producers class. And we're starting that. And then we also are going to be offering some, we want more content from the public, from East Hampton residents. So we're going to be offering smartphone classes and learning how to edit your own, especially in iMovie, videos that you make. So those are other things you're going to be
I want to take those classes.
Exactly.
I could use that.
Because I think that would be really fun. And really the technology, if you have basically a smartphone, you have the technology right there to do all sorts of things. And we want that content from the public. I think that would be really, really fun. And really
yes, because one of the things people have to realize is that if you are going to take a class in being a producer, it means you have to have some idea about what you want to do and how you're going to do it, because it is a burden. You know, you have to make sure, for instance, there are 3 newspapers that are local, and then there's also the Southampton Press. I read every one of those every week.
I know you do.
So I can know what's going on so that I can be able to decide where I'm going next on the next show. And then I can book my show a few weeks in advance. Otherwise, I don't sleep. I'll say, what am I doing on the 12th? What am I doing? You know, so it's very important to have a good idea. Now, you don't have to do it on the kinds of things I do. I mean, my goal is to save East Hampton.
Right.
I've always had this sort of messianic complex. I like Joan of Arc, you know.
I do too.
Yeah, except I forget that she was burned at the stake. But, you know, I mean, so you don't have to have that kind of thing. It can be a lot of different things.
It could be a lot of different things. And I agree with you that you need to have some sort of idea. But in some cases, maybe you just show up and try it out and see maybe some kind of...
And then idea comes to you.
Will be sparked.
Yes.
I also love the idea of just slice of life images. You know, we live in one of, as you were saying before, one of the most beautiful places in the country. Maybe in the world. And we would love to see that. You know, I mean, first of all, it's public access, so anybody can submit anything. And as long as it's not obscene, we will air it. If you're a resident of East Hampton, you've taken the producer's class, and within the last 5 years, because there's all sorts of new technology, we will air it. So you could film the sunrise if you wanted to.
hey, the sunrise around here is pretty
You know, and I would think that would be lovely.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. I don't know, an hour, I don't know, 15 minutes. There's all sorts of things that can happen. It doesn't have to be a studio show,
Yes.
which you do and which I love, but it doesn't have to be those kind of things,
Yes.
you know?
So your new ideas and your new vision, what else do you have on the horizon so that we can know what to expect when we walk in here?
Well, one of the things that I also would like to push is the film screenings. I'm not sure if we're thinking about doing a monthly kind of movie idea. I'm not exactly sure if we're going to do that. I don't know if people realize that we have Studio 3. I don't think many people realize that we have this amazing studio that has a huge screen and is a beautiful venue.
Well, I can tell you, we had our airport meetings at Studio 3.
That's right. Yeah.
And there were over 500 people at the first one.
Yeah.
And it was so crowded. And there was actually no parking even in the whole area. Well, 500 people is a lot of people.
Yeah.
But that room was bulging. And everybody got a seat.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful. It is a huge, huge place.
It's a huge space and a huge asset, and I don't think comparable to any place else in East Hampton.
No.
There's nothing else like it. I mean, speaking in theater terms, it's an enormous black box. And so there's all sorts of things that can be done with it. And we're going to partner again with the Hamptons International Film Festival. Wonderful. We're going to try to do some more filming of their lecture series and their classes.
Oh,
and
that would be
hoping
wonderful.
that they could come and bring a couple movies here, or at least a couple shorts or something, because it's a perfect venue for a movie and then a discussion. Film camps, all sorts of things. I mean, the thing about LTV is that there's so much possibility that sometimes that makes you stuck a little bit, because I just think, which way, I talk with the staff all the time, which way should we go? And really, ultimately, what would be great is if the community came to us and said, this is what you guys should do, this is what we want. And so that's why we started the storytelling project, which we did in the holidays, and which we're going to continue, where we go out and we say, tell your story about when you met your husband, or a great Valentine's Day, or what we did was, Christmas and New Year's. What was that like for you? What was it like in East Hampton when you were growing up? So that's where we need the community to come in to us and say, this is what we need from you and what we want from you. And those doors, I hope, are opening more and more. And because I like to do that kind of stuff.
Well, storytelling is a very important part of life.
It is.
It's
everything.
The traditions that we have, and how do people who are growing up, how do they know where to go if they don't know where they came from? That's a very important part of life.
I mean, it's so ancient that it doesn't have a beginning in history. And this is theater from the very beginning, cave drawings, and these are all stories. And that's what I hope that people will be interested in watching and people will be interested in participating in. Also, I think East Hampton is special because we have changed so dramatically in 40 years. I don't know many places. I've lived a bunch of places, and everything's changed. But East Hampton, in my mind, from my experience, it doesn't look anything like it did in the 70s. Nothing. The Main Street is the same, but the stores are unrecognizable. There's no, 5 and 10, there's no Long Island Sound, there's no,
You can't buy a paper clip in the town.
You can't, right.
If you need it.
Right. And nobody who works here shops.
You almost can't even buy a card if you need it.
Yeah.
We had card stores, and they went from one place to another to try to stay alive, and then they finally went.
Do you remember? Maybe you don't, but there was a store called Pets Painted with Love.
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh my gosh, it was the most amazing store. It was across the street from the movie theater, and this amazing woman just painted. Her job was to paint pictures of your pet. And so there'd be these amazing portraits, and you'd walk in, and the room, that was the whole store.
What happened to that woman?
I have no idea. Or the store. It's just the craziest store. And now, we don't have that kind of quirky thing really anymore. The beaches are still lovely.
No, all we have is clothes.
We have
You know,
white and black.
really, that's all we have is clothes. Even our drugstore no longer is a drugstore. You know, it was a drugstore, and now it's this much is the drugstore, and that much is what you can find in Macy's. You know, I mean, who needs that? You know, so you're right. It has.
So I think it's a dramatic thing. So I think that really talking about even 40 years ago is dramatically different.
And the fact that people made their living basically on two things: fish and growing things.
And now that is, you know, hopefully coming back a little bit. It seems like there's a lot of resurgence in the farm community, which is good.
I hope so.
But in terms of the other thing, I mean, our next door neighbor was a lobster fisherman, you know, and a fisherman. I mean, that's what he did. So it was a very different time. It was very different. And I like that. That's one of the reasons I wanted to come back, because I loved that. It's definitely changed, but I still see parts of it that are there and definitely worth preserving.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. So, matter of fact,
and fighting for.
I'm going to quote our former representative to Congress, Tim Bishop, who always said, if you do not have pristine beaches with clean, clear water and vistas, open vistas to look at, no one's going to come here.
Nope.
And that's what people don't realize, that you have to maintain a certain amount, or after a while, it's just going to be just another honky-tonk place, and who's going to want to come here? Morgan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Phyllis.
I'll see you next week again
See you
when
next
I come
week.
back. And
Don't lose any sleep.
Anyway, it was wonderful, and we wish you lots of good luck. And
thank you very much.
And can keep those visions of what you want to do open and move on, because this is a great asset for our town. We love it. We really do. Matter of fact, my TV, when you turn it on, turns on to this channel.
Oh, perfect.
Everybody can do that if they want. You know, so, because I think what you have to offer is just wonderful.
I think so too.
It's just part of East Hampton. All right, very good. You got to go back to work.